There's one that hasn't happened that I found most egregious, and I'll get to that later. But based on the trades that have happened, who do you think is going to win the Super Bowl next? Hold on. Before we get into that, let me get on my Panthers because they look like they're getting ready to do something real stupid. Did you see that they offered 3 first-rounders and Christian McCaffrey for God, how did I forget his name that fast? Superman down in Houston.
Oh, Deshaun
Yeah, Deshaun Jackson.
Watson.
Nope, Watson. See? Randy Watson, cousin.
We know
Yeah.
who does not watch the game.
No, that what I always Deshaun Jackson always when I hear the name Deshaun Jackson is always the first name that pops into my mind because I've seen him do 2 of the dumbest football things ever in the history of football. And the first time he did something that crazy, he was in high school still. And I still remember it where he did like a celebration and didn't score and thought he scored, but they were like, nah, you didn't score, so we're going to have to put this on the 1-yard line. And then I was like, oh, well, he's a kid. That didn't matter. And then he did it again as a pro. It was just like, man, this dude's just dumb. So it's really that's when I hear the word Deshaun, Jackson is the first one that comes to my mind.
Let me say one thing. The views expressed by each individual member of the show are the views of that member and not of anyone else. Thank you.
Anyway.
Don't do Deshaun like that.
But I mean, he's the only one that's done it twice in my memory. But let's crazy.
Get back to it, we're talking about our Panthers.
Yeah,
Panthers.
That's crazy that the Panthers would get rid of Christian McCaffrey. Like you would think if you want to get better, you need both Christian McCaffrey and Deshaun Watson. So why in the world would you give up Christian McCaffrey for just Deshaun Watson?
I would beg to differ. No, McCaffrey is a beast, but Houston, you have to look at number one, the contract Deshaun is bringing with him, the extension.
Absolutely.
Then you have to look at the player value. Who can we match for the value of player that Deshaun is to that franchise that we can give in a trade that would be of maybe not equal, but just as high a value to them? Only player we could think of would be McCaffrey. And even then, they had to throw other players because McCaffrey doesn't handle the ball on every play, even though he almost did in Carolina because he led in rushing and receiving for 2 years. So you have to factor in those, and then you have to free up. You have to understand Christian's right on the brink of contract negotiations from his rookie contract. So it's like, well, if we're looking at taking on this big contract, hey, we'll let Houston, we freeing them up. And that's the nature of the business. And for franchise, just to say this, for franchise that can keep teams together and stay on top, that's a real feat because we know with the structure and the caps in the NFL, it's hard to keep teams on top for so long just because of the contractual and every issues and everything in the NFL.
Christian McCaffrey is not on his rookie deal anymore. I had to look that up to be certain. Christian McCaffrey signed an extension, 4 years, $64 million.
Oh, that's right.
With the Panthers. Yeah, so he's not on that rookie deal anymore. But
yeah, well, that's the extension. Yeah,
but
this is third year, fourth year, third year.
Yes, I want to get back to Deshaun Watson later because I want to bring up what's an obvious, again, grievance amongst black quarterbacks in the league. But let's move to other ones, which is we've seen some other quarterback movements. You know, Carson Wentz is now in Indianapolis. What's his name? Matt Stafford. He's gone to the Rams. Your boy has replaced him in Detroit. When you look at where the quarterbacks land, like I gotta admit, the Rams are gonna be dangerous, man. people don't realize exactly how good Matthew Stafford is. And I've been raising this argument for some years now. But Matthew Stafford is the truth. But it was like, well, why didn't he do why wasn't he doing well? And it was like because he was in Detroit. So you do have to understand that the greatest running back of all time was also in Detroit, and they didn't do very well. And that was Barry Sanders.
To some playoffs. They even went to an NFC Championship one year and lost to the Redskins. Matthew Stafford ain't done that. Once again, liking quarterbacks that can't get it done. Boom, boom. Do I get a drum? I don't get that rim shot. But
no, absolutely
anyway, no, Stafford is a talented quarterback. I don't want to do that, but it's still I don't know. I'm not ready to jump on that with LA because they were successful with Goff. They were playoff. They were a Super Bowl team. They were a playoff team consistently in this couple of years at the helm. So it's almost, it makes me wonder about the move because you were successful with Goff. But hey, maybe they see something in Stafford that can get them to the next level. Hey, it's still out. I'm not going to put them there and say they're going to be that dangerous when they already were.
Well,
KD, Matthew Stafford sounds similar to me.
KD and Matthew Stafford?
When KD went to Golden State, Matthew Stafford trade. Well, no, KD had a choice. Stafford got traded. But same thing. Listen.
No, it's not the same thing. So,
yes, it is.
So if you want to make that distinction, the closest thing in the NFL to KD going to Golden State was your idol, Tom Brady, going to Tampa Bay. That's the fair distinction that you can make.
Because it's not.
Yes, it is.
Because Tampa Bay was not going to Super Bowls. They were not in the playoffs. LA was. Was LA in the playoffs this past year? Did LA go to the Super Bowl a couple years ago?
Again.
Stop it.
Again.
Stop trying to hate old Brady.
Again.
I knew he would go there.
Again, I have to make this.
Even saw that. I knew you would go. That's why I threw it out there.
Again, I have to go back to Kevin Durant going to a 73-9 team. Now, Tampa Bay was a 73-9. Where you can make the distinction is whatever. Where you can make the distinction, and a very clear distinction, by the way, is the structure of the team. Talking about the organizational structure for where they had all the pieces in place. And essentially what you did was you replaced, when Kevin Durant went, you replaced Harrison Barnes with Kevin Durant. Harrison Barnes is the Jameis Winston equivalent there.
He won a championship there. It's not. They won a championship with Harrison Barnes.
It's three phases in the NFL, which we're still talking about two different sports. So you can't do a mirror apples to apples on this one. You just can't. However, but it's two different sports. But what he did do, which is very, very closely biased, he went and he replaced the guy who, by the way, since you ragging on Jameis Winston, led the NFL.
Not ragging on Jameis Winston. I'm saying the obvious.
All right, so hold on a second.
Jameis had great numbers.
Since you want to talk bad about how bad of their record they were in Tampa Bay, Jameis Winston.
Talk about how bad their record was.
You just did that.
All I said was they weren't winning championships and getting to the playoffs.
Jameis Winston was the previous year, 2020 season.
That's right.
Jameis Winston led the NFL. Jameis Winston in touchdowns,
He's a very talented quarterback.
He also
No
led
doubt
the
that.
NFL with that
But
same
the
team.
thing
Hold on.
is,
With the same
did he
team,
get them
with the
to
same,
the playoffs or the
with the
championship?
same team. Look, no. Because what we're doing is this. With the same team, he led the NFL in touchdowns. He led the NFL in receiving yards. They were still a top 10, if my memory serves me correctly. I believe they were a top 5 defense that same year, and they were 7-9.
And they did okay then. So,
But we're
if
still
they were
talking
a top 5 defense, why couldn't they get to the playoffs or the Super Bowl? Because you
because
had to
Jameis.
have somebody
Hold on.
to lead.
I'm gonna answer your question.
You can't justify.
But my point is this. My point is
Was
this.
Jameis also the defensive player of the year at quarterback, throwing 30 interceptions?
Yes, and that's the answer. That's the answer to why. That's my point. And nobody can
over the hump.
All right. So what you did essentially is replace a Hall of Fame. You replaced a young, growing quarterback with a Hall of Fame caliber quarterback, and then you go on and win the Super Bowl. That is again the equivalent of what they did in Golden State. You replaced a Hall of Fame 3 with a good up-and-coming 3. That's what you did.
It is not, Mac.
How? How is that not?
Just leading them to Super Bowls and they're winning like Golden State. Why would you need to bring Brady in? Just like
your mic is going out. First off,
no, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
The question remains: if Jameis was winning Super Bowls and had them there, like the Warriors were 73-9 and had championships and just went to a championship, the question we were asked, KD, why would you go there? So then that would be the same thing. It would equate if Jameis was winning Super Bowls and they were always in contention to win, then you would say, well, Brady went there with a team that didn't even need him because they were already there. That would be the equivalent, not the argument you're making. So that's what I'm saying. Can I wish I had a handheld so I could drop it right there. But go ahead with whatever point.
You may as well pick that microphone up and throw it in the ocean. Because the point I'm making is real simple. We're talking about the structure of the team, and again, we're talking football. So the way that a football season would end for a team that is really, really good may not necessarily end the same way as a basketball season would for a basketball team that is really, really good. Because again, you're dependent more on skilled players in football. So there's 11 guys on the field that you're heavily dependent on the skilled players at those skilled positions. Basketball's not structured exactly the same way, and you know that. So when you replace a skill guy with a different skill guy of that caliber, then you are likely going to do much better. You cannot go for what they did last year. They still had the same talent.
Dang near a triple-double because of his skill set. Will the Lakers be successful?
You know that's not what I'm saying.
What are we arguing about?
You know that's not what I'm saying.
What are we debating?
You know that's not what I'm saying.
What are we debating?
You know that's what I'm saying. You know that's not what I'm saying because you don't have to bring LeBron James is the size of a power forward, and you don't need to bring in a point guard specifically to fit the needs of LeBron James. You know the difference. Don't do that. Don't do that. And you know the difference between the two.
But you're going into something that is not the argument. We are just talking hypothetical equation to the status of where the team is in their success of winning. You're going into what needs to be done to win. And we know injuries happen and teams might not reach the expectation. But the fact of the matter is, where was this team led by this individual? And where were they, as you said, with the same talent, where were they led by this individual? I don't see teams that play just to say, hey, man, we got one of the top offenses and top defenses, but we can't get to the playoffs and championship. We don't play this.
And guess what else? And guess what else? And guess what else? And guess what else? So we can go to break. And
to get banners.
And guess what else? Jameis Winston didn't have Antonio Brown or Gronkowski.